Okay, we're going to get started. My name is Caroline Allen. I am the Vice President of the YAS Prize, and I'm so thrilled to be here with you today. Kudos to you if this is your fifth webinar. This is our fifth one that we've done this year, really trying to shed a light on what we're looking for, give you more information to make this process as easy and seamless for you as possible. Our application is due in a little over a month on July 15th, and so we have many more webinars coming up until that day. But today's is really focusing on our O in our STOP acronym, which stands for outstanding. And we're really going to focus today on that one specific short answer question that says, how do you define yourself as outstanding? How do you know that you are outstanding? So grateful to have you all here today, and let's jump in. So today we're going to talk about the outstanding principle. I'm going to share some examples of a couple of our alumni who had put some really interesting statistics and metrics in about their outstanding nature and why their schools are outstanding. Then we'll hear from one of our awardees of Capital Prep Schools, Dr. Steve Perry, which is always the highlight of these webinars. And then we'll have some question and answer time at the end. We are going to be using the Q&A feature for our questions. So feel free, as questions come up, feel free to put them in the chat, and then, not put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A portion, and I'll answer them at the end. So let's get started. This is how the YAS Prize defines outstanding. So outstanding education providers demonstrate their success first and foremost through the demand of the students and families they serve, the day-to-day outcomes shown through retention, test scores, activities, and awards. But the ultimate measure of success is whether students are persistent, move on to the next grade or school, and enter productive careers and higher education pathways. So the two pieces that I want you to take away from this webinar, if you take anything away at all, is one, it's really important in your application that you have metrics. They could be qualitative metrics or quantitative metrics. That doesn't matter to us, but you need to make sure you are specific. And a lot of people in their application will add a lot of flowery language and like framing, and then dive into your statistics, like from the gate, like just say why you're outstanding. Sometimes when people lead it in and bury the lead, it's like harder to pull out and be really wowed by. So today I'm going to share a couple of examples of our awardees from last year and what they put in their application that defined them as outstanding. So first we have SOAR Academy, which is a micro school in Evans, Georgia. I had the distinct opportunity and pleasure to visit them earlier this year. And they are just a bustling, scaling micro school that is putting the needs of neurodiverse learners first and foremost. Some of these kids that I had met had been to 3 or 4 other schools. Their parents had tried to homeschool them, and it was really, really hard. And then they finally found SOAR Academy, which just puts their needs first, creates individualized learning plans for every kid. They talked in their outstanding question about this importance of personalized learning and design. And some of the statistics or metrics that they gave are that, when their kids take tests, 85% of the students are meeting the standards or scoring above the standard. It was also interesting that if a student does have to go back to the public school or like another school, often they are able to remove the IEP. So a statistic, that they might need some services or some supports, but ultimately not the level of support that they came in with. It was also interesting to note that most of the students some of the students that have gone to SOAR now serve as college interns and camp counselors to help other students at SOAR. That's a statistic or a metric that you might not normally think about, but it's really incredible to hear when schools are kind of building their own or creating a pipeline to then drive talent a few years down the line. And then they gave a story as part of their short answer question. And this story talks about a new student. She was a 9th grader. She was reading and comprehending on a 2nd grade level, suffering from depression and social anxiety. And with her mom, they created a specific one-on-one learning program that consisted of a ton of reading intervention, small class sizes, mental health support. And by the end of 10th grade, so 2 years later, she was reading at a 6th grade level, so had jumped 4 grade levels, and was having just a much more successful and happy time in school. So they started with those statistics and those metrics, which are compelling, and then they backed it up by a story, a personal story, where you can really envision what this school is all about. The next school that I want to shout out is RCMA, Immokalee Community Academy, which is a charter school in Florida. They are a rural school. When you think of Florida, you think about the coasts, but they are in the middle of the state. And they really focus on students who are from, families and communities of migrant workers. One interesting statistic that they brought up is 100% of their students play musical instruments. And that's just something that, again, is a little bit maybe random, but it draws your attention. You're like, wow, these students may have never had access to arts education and musical education. So they added that in there. They also did something interesting where they compared their results to the district, right? So as a charter, they obviously have accountability metrics and they take the same tests that the district schools test. And over 91% of their students in grades 3 to 8 are testing at a 3 on a scale of 1 to 5, which is higher than the district, where the district was a lot lower of a percentage. So, when you're talking about metrics and test scores, sometimes you could be focusing on your growth. Sometimes you can be focusing on the actual, percent of students who are reading at grade level or writing at grade level or doing math at grade level. And sometimes that juxtaposition against other schools in the same community is compelling enough because, again, parents should have options. And, we want to make sure that schools are feeling competitive to do what's best for students. And often that assessment piece is really important. The next school is Father Judge High School. They are a faith-based high school in Philly, Pennsylvania. They have a really incredible career tech education pathway that puts that at the forefront of learning. And so their statistics or metrics look so different than other schools that I've just mentioned. 100% of their graduating welders receive lucrative jobs, which pay starting at about $75,000 per year. They have a lot of partnerships with local businesses and manufacturers. And then more than 60% of their 60 students have graduated from the welding program since its inception. And the number is likely to double in the next 2 years. We all know that when we need a welder or a plumber or electrician, like those people are so important to get the job done. And unfortunately, there's not as many kids going into trades. And so what Father Judge High School does is arm kids with both the diploma and the certification. So those statistics are really compelling. The fact that they want to double in 2 years and the fact that they've had more than 60 students entering that type of workforce to a job that is not only lucrative, but are in demand, right? That job is not going away. AI or technology or anything related to that is not going to replace those jobs that are needed. Next, we have BuildUp, which is a college workforce high school in Birmingham, Alabama. What I love when I read Mark's application is he dove right in with his statistics, and I'm going to share some of them here. So he has 90% student retention, 30% growth on standardized test scores in year 1. All of his students earn at least 6 post-secondary credits attained by the end of year 3 of their school. 100% of their students are on grade level by the end of year 4 at their school. 100% employment or a 4-year enrollment post graduation. And then some other statistics that may have to do with, reading, writing, and math are his graduates have a 90% owner occupancy, which means that 90%, often they're the first in their families to own a home. And that's like built into their program. That's built into, they work on houses and then they also work on the financial piece of the investment and the, the importance of owning a home in your community. And also 50% they're in the homes they work on. And you can see them building a home right here. They have a 50% housing price increase 5 years out. So the homes that they own obviously are multiplying in value, which is leading to more equity, and that just increases in wealth for these families who have been stuck in a cycle. That was not the case. So obviously really different than the others, but still really important. And last but not least, we have Northern Cass School District here, which is a public school district in Fargo, North Dakota. Superintendent Corey Steiner, he focused his outstanding on actually talking about his community and saying that they, within 40 square miles, are in the middle of cornfields and there's no essential services. And what Superintendent Steiner did was really focus on bringing those connections that the community needs to his school. And so adding in, mental health support, medical support, food and clothing donations and things like that. Again, this is a school district that has no grades. It's a full competency-based learning model. But instead of focusing on the reading scores and the math scores and the writing scores, which are also exceptional, he focused on something different that was a little bit more grabbing and innovative for the judges to really comprehend. So in these 5 examples, notice I really talked very little about math and reading and writing. Those are so important, and we want our kids to be successful with those subjects. But what other metrics, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, can you give in your application that broaden what you do, that illuminate what you do, and really tell the story of your students and why you're providing that type of education that you're providing? Before I get to our interview with Dr. Steve Perry, I wanted to just remind us all about our key application dates for this year. So right now we are approaching our July 15th application deadline. There will be no deadline extension, so please make sure you get your application in by then. In September, we will announce our 64 quarterfinalists live from Washington, D.C. We will then be cutting the group in half in October at the Forbes Under 30 Summit in Cleveland. It's October 8th, 9th, and 10th. Then in November, our 32 semifinalists will make their way to Miami, Florida for our 3-week virtual, 1-week in person Miami Accelerator. And then we will end the year in December with announcing our finalists and our winner live from New York City at the Hilton Midtown. So without further ado, when we were thinking about our speakers and our alumni, we could think of no better person than Dr. Steve Perry to share about this outstanding principal. Dr. Steve Perry is a charter school network, runs Capital Prep Schools, which is a charter school network in New York and Connecticut. And I'm excited to introduce him and dive in today. Dr. Perry, tell us where you're calling in from, because it's a little bit of an interesting story today.
Yeah, I'm calling in. Literally, I'm sitting on the steps of the state capitol in Hartford, trying to convince people who do racist things to stop doing them, so that we can get our kids into great schools. So,
what are you specifically? You're trying to increase the cap so you can open up another school in Northern Connecticut.
That's in New York. No, that's in New York. Okay. In New York, it's at least one of our Black members, which is a different organization in New York, is on the call, Reverend Al. That we're doing in New York. But right here in Connecticut, there is shockingly opposition to access to quality education outside of the traditional school system. So we have the highest scored application in the state. And as we speak, they are threatening to pull our application out. I mean, we've already been approved unanimously by the State Department of Education, but they're threatening to pull us out of the budget as we speak. So I am here, not in my schools, about to run back in there as soon as we finish to do the unfun part of the work that we do, which is part of what we use to measure our success. It's not enough for us to just send 100% of our graduates on to 4-year colleges. We have to pave the way for more children from historically disadvantaged populations to have access to a quality education, no matter where they live, no matter how much money their parents have or don't have, and no matter what language they speak or don't speak. Our obligation is to our community. And in our case, we're for us, by us. We're a school started by African Americans in the Black and Latin community.
Can you talk a little bit about that? As a founder, you are doing a lot of different things, right? You're like coming up with strategy to hire teachers and attract students to your schools, and facilities and budget, and now you're talking about advocacy work and policy work and meeting, with legislators at the state capitol. Like, how do you do it all, and what do you see your role in that policy space, which you're doing today?
The most revolutionary thing that you can do is teach people who were never expected to be able to learn. And so, lest anyone think providing access to an education for children from historically disadvantaged populations is something that you can do outside of the political realm, you don't understand the work that we're doing. I don't care if you want to run a micro school or a network of charter schools. I don't care if you want to do a tutoring program or develop software. If you are cracking the code and you are providing children with access, and I say children, but I really don't mean children, students, because some of you may work with adults, students with access to what, if you could see this building behind me, what this building promised us, which is equality, then you've got this all wrong. I just left the meeting with the lieutenant governor, because I'm sure I was being recorded, so I'll tell the truth. She wanted me to explain to her why I wanted to open a school in this community, which I'm from. And I explained to her that 69% of the white children in this school system that you're in can read or write or do math above grade level, which I think is a good number. Less than 20% of the black children can do that. There's an academic apartheid going on. So I don't even know why I should have to explain this to you. Like, do you think we should continue down this road? You call yourself an ally, you're a Democrat. Like, allies, from where I sit, look out for people. And so the question then was followed up with what was the real question, which is, but are your teachers union? I said, so then let's start with why we're here. Like, if you want to have a conversation, let's have a conversation. The real question then you should ask me is this about racism? Because do you really believe that African Americans have the right to a quality education and have a role in producing that education? Because the answer is yes, then really the question isn't mine, the answer is really on you. Why shouldn't we have our own school? So that's what I get to do here. Instead of being in school, making sure that we're hiring the right teachers or the right principal, making sure they're taking attendance right.
Right. It's such a hard balance, and you have incredible results, right? Which is frustrating, and of why you have to fight so hard, because your results speak for itself. When you were thinking about your YAS Prize application, you were explaining why you are outstanding. What are some of the metrics that you use, or what are some of the metrics that you share with in those meetings today, with really proving the quality of education and the results that your students of color can show and produce on a daily basis?
So Capital Prep takes children at all grade levels all year, including 12th grade. And I think that's an important starting point. Success is a measure of the distance from where you start to the level of goal achievement. We're a college preparatory school. Ergo, children must be prepared to go to college when I hand them their diploma. So our metrics of success is our preparation or value add proposition to them. So 100% of our graduates have gone on to four-year colleges since we opened our first school here in Hartford 18 years ago. And we opened our first school with grades 6 to 12. So that means in our first year, we started with seniors. I'll say that again. In our first year, we started with seniors.
Right.
And every school we've opened since then, we've started with seniors. So that in Harlem, in New York, we're not allowed to start with seniors. They won't allow, you have to grow up, whatever. So we had to get special permission to serve the neediest children, which sounds dystopian, but okay. So we believe that as a school founded by our community, for our community, within our community, we should start with those who are most in need. And those who are most in need are the children who've been in the systems, failed by the system the longest amount of time. So the challenge of being able to prepare children who are 19 years old for college who didn't think that college was even a possibility. And the stretch of, in some cases, 4 months is Herculean, but it's what we do. What we don't use as a measure of our success are some of the input indicators that other people might use in some of the state tests. We know our kids, the 96% of our kids are coming in below grade level. That's why they came to us in the first place. We're essentially last chance you for a lot of our children. And so this past fall, a young lady we accepted in one of our schools in New York, we were her fifth school. She's a sophomore. So she's been to 4 schools in a year. So at the beginning of her sophomore year, we were her fifth school. We got to get that kid ready. She's still got to develop the skills. We got to work with the family. So you can imagine her state test scores were probably not awesome. When I was just talking to the lieutenant governor, it's not enough that I just said I sent 100% of our poor minority students to 4-year colleges. Like, that's not enough. Like, are you not amazed? She wanted to know what their SAT scores were. I said, well, they're low. I mean, SATs are connected to race and poverty. Like, we know that. So I got poor Black and Latin kids. But what you should go back to is how many of them are going on to 4-year colleges.
Right.
If you can't beat 100%. Like, if that everybody's everybody, I mean, at some point, you just got to be impressed. Like, you just got to be like, okay, cool, you got it. Y'all won.
What is that comparison? Like, take a Bridgeport, for example, right? Like, what is the comparison to how many students in Bridgeport go on to 4-year colleges? Like, what does that gap look like? I can't imagine.
So it's interesting because school districts get really fancy with their fuzzy math. And how they arrive at their answers is also somewhat misleading. So if they'll send out a survey and they'll say, do you plan to go to college? Yes. You've not been accepted, you've not applied. Right. But you do plan, okay? So they count that child as planning, having plans for college at afterwards. What we use is, we use actual college acceptances from colleges that we can verify. So it's hard to make the comparison, but by comparison, it's an honest number of enrollment is somewhere around 25%.
Right. So a fourth.
Them, not us. Them, not us.
Right. When you think about, so all of our semifinalists do a pitch in Miami, which is a 3-minute of why you should win the $1 million Yas prize. How did you think about results when you were working on your pitch? And do you have any advice, whether people are telling their story on paper or, out loud in a pitch? What advice do you have for, qualitative data and quantitative data and adding that into their story?
Thank you for that question, Caroline, because it was a grueling process. First of all, I want to congratulate all of you, but it was straight up a grueling process. And I won't say I loved it. But we're here, so, right? And what I will say is, to thine own self be true. You know what you consider to be your success matrix or success matrices. Whatever they are, stand on them 10 toes down. Be true to your story. It is very easy to see somebody else's story and be like, wow, that's pretty impressive. But if you don't build houses, why are you going to compare yourself to somebody who does? If you don't make technology, why are you going to do that? If you're not a college preparatory program, then why are you? If you are a dropout prevention program, then talk about how you prevent dropouts. Whatever it is that you do, that you do well, hone in on that. We are a college preparatory school. That's what we do. But it's the college preparation with the juxtaposition of our inputs, who we take. Many, there are schools that will claim that, they send 100% of their graduates on to 4-year colleges, but they started with 30,000 kids and they got 100 graduates. So, yeah, okay, that's cool. But that's not what we do. Right. What we do is we take who we get and we get who we take. And so when telling your story, just be honest about yourself. They're going to do their homework. They're going to check anyway. So just be honest about yourself. Let other people's process be theirs. Respect it, but don't let it trip you up. You're here for a reason. And don't overthink it. You pitch all damn day, like you don't even recognize it. This is what you're doing. When the lieutenant governor called me in, she said, you know, her, her assistant said she has 5 minutes for you. Well, I wasn't asking for 5 minutes, but since it's on, let's go. Let's make this thing happen. 5 minutes. I got to run through. All right, what do I need her to understand? I heard rumors about what she's been saying, so I got to answer that question. I got to dispel that. I got to do it in a non-aggressive way because of, other things. And I got to tell her this in a way in which she'll listen, hopefully, knowing that she doesn't have any interest in charter schools. She has interest in whether or not our teachers are going to be union. That's all she wants to know. And my answer is no. I hope not. But I'm not going to stop them.
And I feel like that's so tricky, right? And it's similar to a pitch of like you have such a short amount of time to say your whole life story or to dispel all of the myths, right? That she's making up stories about in her head about, what your school is and what your school isn't, without you letting, shed a light on your students and your story and why you're here.
And I just want to, because I just right on that really quickly, I just want to extend on that. Because then when she asked me questions, she said, but I'm told that you kick kids out. I'm told that you profit. I'm told, like, these are all things that are just scurrilous rumors. And I mean, they're just not true. And so it's hard sometimes to dispel something that's so false without sounding defensive is the point I'm trying to get to. It's like saying I'm a 6'7" blonde. Oh, I'm not. So other than I'm not, I don't know how to answer that question. But looking at me and seeing that I'm neither 6'7" nor blonde clearly isn't going to be enough. So I have to then come up with an answer to a ridiculous question because it's ridiculous. It's illegal for me to just capriciously kick kids out of school. They have rights. I mean, they do. They have due process. We're a public school. She knows that. She's the lieutenant governor of the state of Connecticut. She actually knows the answer to that. But she's asking me that because somebody put that in her head. And so I'm saying to you, you pitch all day. And again, this is no disrespect to the Yas Prize under conditions that are far more treacherous than whether or not you get the money. Like, just real talk. When you're talking to a state senator or you're talking to a lieutenant governor, or in 20 minutes, I'll be talking to the governor's office. When you're talking to them, it's an existential threat. They've been fed lies, like straight up not true at all. No matter which way you cut it, it's a lie. And so you do that is the reason why I'm asking you to draw upon your muscle memory. You do that all of the time. Parent comes in, she's on 11. She's saying that your teacher's cursing the kids out. If you were in the classroom when this happened, you know that that's not what happened. That's a pitch. You got to get her off the ledge. You got to get her off the ceiling, fingernails clutched in there. You got to talk her down. And you got to get her to listen that that's not what happened. That the word damn is not cursing the kids out. It just isn't. And that's, and we get it. So you do this all the time is what I'm saying to you.
No, and I think in your application, what stood out to us so much was this idea that, you have these amazing results that are so captivating and like, wow, how do they do that? But then also that idea that you take students, right? Like, even if they're entering senior year, you haven't had from kindergarten to truly like grow them into amazing human beings. You're able to take someone who's been to 5 schools or been to many schools or has just moved and still have those same results. And I think, even though it's a little different, I think one piece of advice from your story is, maybe don't give your application to someone who's like staunchly against you, but, give your application and your short answer questions to someone else, a family member, a colleague, someone who knows nothing about what you're doing and maybe has some questions or has some misconceptions, and have them give you feedback before you submit it to the Yas Prize. I think that's always a good exercise because
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. I would agree. Well, I would agree because you're the decider. So yeah, that's what you say works. It worked. But I would extend your point, and I would say we sometimes speak in shorthand. We're traveling in our silo, and we're talking to people who understand what we're talking about. And the Yas folks are going to have people who are listening to you who are going to be across disciplines. So some of them may know what neurodivergent is. Some of them may understand the tech that goes into the technology that you have. And they may understand it well enough to know to call BS on and say, you don't serve 6 million kids. It's not possible. With that platform, you can't possibly do it. So you may want to make sure that, and I'm not saying that anyone would, if something is aspirational, acknowledge it as such. This is what we hope to do. But you don't know, essentially is my point. You don't know who you're going to be speaking with. So I'm going to wholeheartedly agree with Caroline and say, yeah, that's true. You do want to have the conversation with other people. And again, keep in mind your own preparation strategy. Some people are going to want to pitch and bounce it off of other people. Some people, that's going to freak you out. And so you're going to need to just go in a room and sit there and pace and say it out loud and pace and say it out loud and pace and say it out loud. And that's just what you're going to do. Some of you are going to need to write it down. Some of you need to watch it. Some of you need to create, whatever it is. One thing that I would suggest to you, if they invite me down and I can, I'll come. But as you're putting together your pitch, there is the sexiness of technology. But if you ain't comfortable, don't go out of your lane. You got 3 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Don't put on, I call it prom shoes, right? And those of you who work with high school kids know what I'm talking about. So many of our girls come in, they got on prom shoes, and I'm thinking, honey, I can still see the tag on it. Like, they've not even been scuffed. What are you doing? Like, this is going to go bad. And, and we have the conversation with them before the prom. Ladies and gentlemen, we understand, like, even at our school where you wear a tie and blazer, you want to get new shoes. Rock those joints for a week before. No, Dr. Perry, I want mine to be new. You actually don't. You really don't want them to be new. You want them to be a little bit worn. I say that because you've done pitches before. I keep wanting you to go back to what got you here. Take them to the deep waters, ladies and gentlemen. Think of what you do. Think of how you do it. Think of where people see you at your best. Be that person. Because the last thing you want to do is see somebody come up there and do it the way you would have done it. And you're thinking, dang, that's exactly how I would have said it. But I thought because I was in this new space, in this new place, I was going to try some things because my homegirl who I met when I was down here, she's doing, she's got some tech deck that she's going to put together. Yeah, that's all she does is tech decks. You don't do tech decks. And so you don't want to do that. Stay away from that if that's not what you do. But if they absolutely must do that, I'm saying run that mess over and over and over. Put it on multiple platforms. I mean, every possible way it could go wrong. I want you to know the answer before you get to the test. I'm telling you what it is. I'm telling you straight up, keep it simple. Do what you do. I say also, if you know you're a nervous speaker, I don't suggest you run a video because that's not what they want to do. But be mindful that that's not going to be your thing. You're not going to come up there and wow them with your oratory skills. So say what it is that you know how to say, the way that you know how to say it. One of the folks who moved forward, she, she'll tell you this herself. She didn't feel comfortable without cards. She just didn't feel comfortable, just not her thing. So she put cards up. She did the cards, worked out. She told her story in a way that was still compelling. You present as yourself. Let them decide if they are impressed with your presentation of yourself. And I'll say this final piece. No one said this to me, but I'm going to project this, and Caroline will tell me if I'm wrong. I think that what the Yas family wants to see is how you will be known beyond this particular experience. What is the impact that you're going to make on your craft as a whole? Everybody wants a winner. Everybody wants a winner. When colleges accept a student, they're accepting a student based upon what they think they're going to do when they graduate. That's what they're doing. I believe that Yas is looking for people who are at the state capitol, who are going to split their conversation with you between the lieutenant governor and the governor. Like, that's what they want, if that's what your thing is, or the equivalent of in your industry. I don't know what the other industries do, is my point. Be you. Just be you. Show how what you do is going to change the work that we do.
And it's so true that the Yas Prize is just the start, right? Like you had this journey that leads you to the Yas Prize, or leads you to apply to be recognized and rewarded, and then this is just the start to propel you with funding and new colleagues and support to go even further. So it's kind of like that bridge to get to like the new terrain that you want to get to. Obviously knowing who you are and what you do and staying true to yourself and your core. Like, we don't want you to change that. We don't want you to forget about that, nor do we want you to try to be someone else just because I shared 5 examples, or we don't want 100 applications that look like Dr. Perry schools, right? We just want breadth and depth and diversity in all the ways that we define diversity: geography, the students you work with, rural, urban, charter, public, private, micro school, like you name it, we want diversity in all those ways.
I would agree with that. Just if I just jump in there, just as you say that, I want people to understand that what I was impressed with, and I want to give Yas big ups on this one. They had a diverse group of people, both from product, process, and people. All I said both, but all 3. So I want to laud you guys on that. The group that was assembled, were the Avengers of different industries. So kudos. Don't think that you have to be someone else's industry, is I guess what I'm saying, because they seem to be interested in finding people from different industries.
The more different you look, or in all the ways that we define that, is actually more compelling. We're going to go to some questions. I know Dr. Perry doesn't have a lot of time with us, so I'm only going to do about 5 minutes of questions. But if I don't answer your question, info@yasprize.org is the best way to find me. Yes, the recording will be sent out following the call. It will be sent out via a YouTube link on Monday, so be on the lookout for that. Dr. Perry, someone had a question about if a charter has multiple campuses like yours. How did you think about applying for like one campus versus like your entire network?
We applied for the network because our goal is to white box. So we want to take what we do and we want to be able to, because we have multiple campuses, we want to codify what we do. And there is I read I can't remember the name of the book, but I read a book a little while ago written by someone who was one of the founders of Edison. And while the Edison struggled, ultimately, one of the things that he talked about in it was how there's very little money spent in R&D in education. So no one's going to give you money to try things. Everything that we get, we have to spend on children immediately. So for us, we saw this as an opportunity to put some money in that direction, to put eyes on processes. So that's why we didn't go for a single campus. We wanted something that could be used across campuses.
And I would say probably 95, if not 100% of our charter schools or private schools that have multiple campuses apply at a network level, meaning that the founder, the CEO, the head of the whole thing is the one applying. And it wouldn't be possible to necessarily have like 2 of your schools kind of competing at 2 different applications. Because if you think about it, like Dr. Perry's Harlem school and Connecticut school, right? Like they're the same. Even though they may have different student demographics and different, different populations coming from different states and different laws, their secret sauce is the same amongst. So I would suggest applying as a charter network instead. On average, we receive between 2,000 and 2,500 applications each year. We'll see what our numbers are this year, but we encourage you to get your application in early. And someone asked about health education. So our foundation does not tend to reward education providers that are doing what we call like supplemental education, whether it's like 100% focus on mentoring or tutoring or like health education or something of that nature. It's not that we don't think those things are important. We do. Just the current priority of the foundation is direct education provider, or as close to students as possible, knowing that reading, math, and writing is important, but it's also like the quality of the whole holistic experience. So we are less likely to fund something that is a little bit more like separate than the direct education. Last question I'm going to answer today. As a network with elementary, middle, and high school, would you still apply as a network with all the variety of metrics? So yes, I would still apply as a network. We have like Friendship Public Charter Schools that is a massive network of schools. We actually have a lot of examples on our website of networks. And I think the best thing for that is like zoom in on what connects them all and what makes you different. And so anyone who knows Dr. Perry talks about the 100% of his students go on to four-year colleges or more. And that is something that like is entwined with who he is and what he stands for and what his schools stand for. And that's memorable because it's so specific. If he listed like 10 other things, it would jumble the one thing that he is so proud of, which is built on all of the things that he does to get, you know, his students there. So I know there might be a lot of metrics and you might want to throw all of the spaghetti at the wall, but I would really focus on like 2 or 3 that make you most unique and will help you to stand out the most. Dr. Perry, any last words of wisdom or advice in our remaining 30 seconds that we have with you?
I go back to what I said, to thine own self be true, really. You pitch all of the time. You do. You pitch to your teachers to get them to come to work on time. You pitch to your scholars to be their level best. You probably sometimes look in the mirror, pitch to yourself to get up and go to work. You're pitching all the time. Stay in your lane. Don't do anything that you wouldn't normally do. Don't try any new stuff out this is my suggestion. But if being true to yourself means to try new stuff all the time, then rock out.
Wonderful. Well, I think we owe you a huge thank you. Obviously, congrats on being a finalist last year. We are so inspired and excited that you are a part of our network. And you know, we wish you best of luck in the next meeting that you have at the state capitol. So we'll definitely follow on Twitter. Give us some updates. Thank you so much, Dr. Perry. For those who are still with me, we have our next webinar coming up on June 14th. At 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. That's focusing on our last principle, permissionless. So we've seen sustainable, transformational. Today was outstanding. Next one up will be permissionless. So please RSVP for that at yasprize.org/June 14th. And we also have office hours every single Friday at 12 o'clock to 12:45 p.m. Eastern time. So that's office hours are a great opportunity to come on, to get your questions answered, and to have a more intimate experience with us, because obviously a webinar, we don't see you all, and we don't get to hear your voices besides what questions you submit. So office hours every Friday. I will say today for office hours, I had one other person and she was awesome. We had a great 20-minute conversation. As we get closer to the deadline, we've had up to 40 or 50 people on office hours. So don't wait till the end. Don't wait till July 10th to come on office hours. Come on, you know, the next couple weeks, and we're happy to answer your questions that you may have. Info@yasprize is the best. Info@yasprize.org is the best email address. And this recording will be sent out on Monday, in addition to our other recordings. But if you want to find it in the meantime, they're all on our Yas Prize YouTube channel. If you type Yas Prize YouTube in Google, it will come up and you'll see all the past webinar recordings there, in addition to some other videos and sizzle reels from our finalists, including Dr. Perry's sizzle reel. So thank you so much again to Dr. Perry, wishing him best of luck in his next subsequent meetings. Thank you all for being here on a Friday afternoon. And until next time, we will see you soon. Thank you, everyone.